Alright, so welcome back to Dominion Dark Ages, What's in the Box. I believe this is part 5 now. So we just started with a couple of the 5 costing cards. We only got through 2 of them. And I think we'll get through most of the 5 costing cards in this video. Maybe not all of them, but most of them for sure. There might be 1 or 2 that we don't go through that are 5 costing cards. But we'll definitely get them in the next video. Alright, so now, as you know, if you've seen some of my videos on Dominion, there are cards that I don't like because of they're not down to earth, or they're magical or in some way or something like that. I'm not too fond of that in my Dominion games. Not saying that there isn't games that have some magic elements in the game that I won't play, but for Dominion, I want to keep Dominion down to earth for sure. And I especially like to play games with aliens and things like that. But once again, I still wouldn't play a Dominion expansion that had something to do with aliens, because I want my Dominion game to be very down to earth. And so there were 2 cards in this expansion that I replaced because of that. Cultist, mostly just because, I hate that idea. Cultist. There's just nothing good about it. And then the other one is Mystic. And so I replaced Cultist with an Earthquake. Now, when you think about it, what is most likely the case that is going to turn your village into a ruined village? Well, an Earthquake could easily do that, right? And so if a card is going to give out ruins anyways, you might as well have a card called Earthquake. And so that's why I used Earthquake to replace, Cultist. So let's go over it. So, obviously, you'll have to look at Cultist yourself if you play with Cultist rather than Earthquake. But here we go. You get +2 cards with this card. Then each other player gains a ruins. You may play an Earthquake from your hand. A Earthquake from your hand. So this is really powerful. It gives you 2 cards, and then everybody else is going to get a ruins. And then if you had an Earthquake in your hand, you'd get to play that as well. And maybe you didn't have it in your hand. Maybe you played this card, you drawed the 2 cards, and one of them was Earthquake. Well, then you'd get to play it. Everyone else would get a ruins again. You'd get 2 more cards. And so you could easily chain a lot of Earthquakes. I have played this game with Earthquakes so many times that, where you play it I play it maybe chain it 3 times in a turn. It's awesome. I love it a lot. And then when you trash this, you'll get 3 cards. So if this is trashed, or if you trash it with something else, you'll get to draw 3 cards. So that's really cool, especially if you run out of ruins. If you run out of ruins, then maybe if there's no more ruins to give out, then maybe keeping these aren't super useful. But you could trash it to get an awesome benefit, especially if you want to play an awesome card that trashes cards that gives you a powerful benefit by trashing cards. This one is definitely a good one to trash later on in the game, and once you've done some damage to your opponents, for sure. And when you think about it, chaining a bunch of Earthquakes, usually what happens after an Earthquake? I don't know, aftershocks, right? So it's kind of thematic in that sense, and it's definitely thematic in the sense that each other player is going to get a ruins when an Earthquake strikes. And so, or, hits or shakes the ground or whatever you want to call it. So, that's really cool. So I thought of that as an awesome replacement for what it used to be. Okay, then we have the Rogue. And so with this, you'll get 2 treasure. And then this is an attack card sometimes. Only sometimes. In the beginning of the game, it could be possible that this is an attack card. But I've played this a lot where it wasn't much of an attack card. So let's go over why that is. So if there are any cards in the trash costing from 3 to 6, gain 1 of them. Otherwise, each other player reveals the top 2 cards of their deck, trashes 1 of them, costing from 3 to 6, and discards the rest. So that is a pretty cool card. It lets you basically gain cards costing from 3 to 6 from the trash, and that's really cool. There's only a few cards out there that do that. There's another card in this expansion that does that, and then Intrigue's got one. Lurker lets you do it too. So that means but if, there aren't any other cards, trashing cards in the game, and this is the only one doing it, it's possible. It's also possible if the only cards that have been trashed are estates and coppers anyway, it's possible that the first time you get to play this will be to attack somebody, making them lose one of their cards. So that is definitely pretty cool. And then you still gain it, still gain some good cards next time, maybe golds, who knows. So that's a pretty cool card. Then we have the Band of Misfits. Now, this one, you'll play this as if it were a cheaper action card in the supply. This is that card until it leaves play. So that can be kind of useful at times, because you can play, any card that's in the supply as long as it's there, and it could become in handy if there's something you need at a particular moment. That could come in handy. But it's still not necessarily my favorite card. This is kind of like in the middle. I'm in between on this card. I can't say I hate it, but I don't necessarily like it as much as most of the other cards that we've gone over. All right, let's continue on. So we still have several five costing cards to go over. So next we have Rebuild. Now, I like this card a lot. I really do. But if I want to play a long game, this is not a card to play with in a long game. This is a game that will definitely shorten the game, make it go by super fast, and it really just comes down to the person who buys the most rebuilds that will win the game probably. So let's go over it. Well, first you'll get an action. Then you'll name a card. Reveal cards from your deck until you reveal a victory card you did not name. Discard the rest, trash the victory card, and gain a victory card costing up to 3 more than it. So this is like a super powerful, super easy way of, assuming you'll still have to buy an estate at some point, because when you play with Dark Ages, you start with shelters. So you will have to buy an estate before you play the Rebuild, obviously. But then you turn that estate into a duchy, and then you can turn that duchy into a province. And if you were playing with Prosperity too, well, you could turn the Prosperity into a colony. So it's very powerful. And this ends the game super, super fast. So if you just want to play a really quick game, this is the fastest. This will end the game super fast. So if you play with this card, it'll end the game super fast. But like I said, if you play with this card, there's not too much strategy involved, because everybody's going to go for it too, and it'll just be a rebuild rush, So, and it really will just come down to whoever gets the most of these and plays this the most in the end. And who has the most victory cards, obviously. So it's not super strategic. And in that sense, it's not super fun. I don't think I've had too many games where I had a lot of fun. I think the first couple of times I played it, I had a lot of fun with it. But after a while, I realized it wasn't nearly as fun as I thought it was to begin with. If you've never played with this card, you'll have fun with it first couple of times for sure, especially if nobody else realizes, the usefulness of Rebuild. But in the end, it's not going to be as fun to play with after you've gotten used to playing with that card. Then we have the Counterfeit. This one gives you a treasure, and it gives you a plus buy. And then when you play this, you may play a treasure from your hand twice. If you do, trash that treasure. So that can be very useful. This could be a way of getting rid of your coppers. If you don't have other ways of getting rid of them, this could be a good way to do it, because basically it turns them into a temporary silver, and then you trash it. So that could be very useful. Of course, you could use this with any treasure. So if you trashed a gold, gold's going to be a 6 costing. That's going to be, it's going to give you 6 treasure. And you still get 7 and a plus buy. So that's potentially almost enough for a province right there. So assuming you had another card that gave you a treasure, which you probably did, this would almost guarantee that you could buy a province if you were to trash a gold. So that's pretty cool. Counterfeit. But like I said, I'm kind of in between on that card. Can't say I've had a lot of fun with it. Then we have the Ruined Fountain. Now, this replaced Mystic. And so, Mystic is very similar to a card called Wishing Well from Intrigue. So let's just go over it real quick. So we get a plus action. We get plus 2 treasure. Then you name a card. Then reveal the top card of your deck. If you named it, put it into your hand. Now, I absolutely love this card. This is a fun card to play with, especially if you have a bunch of ruined fountains. Now, there have been times where I guessed the card right on the first try, even with Wishing Well. But this one makes it so if you don't get it right the first time and you play this again in the same turn, assuming you played this again right after the first one, this guarantees that you know exactly what that card is, because you revealed it, but it's going to go back on top of your deck if you didn't name it right. So that's really cool. So this guarantees that the second time you play this, you're going to get that card, whatever it may be. So it's not too much of a gamble the second time, because you know what it is for sure. And I've had a lot of fun playing with this. Now, like I said, there's a card called Wishing Well, and this is very similar to it, but it was Mystic. And so that's why I decided to replace it with a Ruined Fountain. Because if you were to go into a village that was ruined, in ruins, and there was a fountain, and there usually would be a fountain sitting in a village somewhere, right? Well, that fountain probably had some coins lying around. People, like to toss coins into fountains, right? And so, if an earthquake strikes, the last thing people are going to think is to raid a fountain anyways. And even if they did, there'd probably still be a few coins lying around, a couple of pennies or something like that, right? Sitting in the fountain that nobody wanted. And so that's kind of thematic that you get +2 treasure with this card. That's why I came up with the idea for the Ruined Fountain. All right, well, we got through almost all of the 5 costing cards, but there's still quite a few more, actually. So we'll have to go over them in the next video.